All right, let's dive right into this explainer. We're looking at section 15.2 today, specifically how we systematically verify an information security management system for ongoing ISO/IIC 42001 compliance. When organizations put this standard in place, they're building a massive, comprehensive framework to lock down their information. But setting it up, well, that's literally only half the battle. How do they actually know the whole shebang is working the way it's supposed to? That is exactly what we're going to unpack today as we walk through the entire life cycle of an internal audit. Because let's be real, we can't just cross our fingers and guess that our data is safe. We need concrete proof. With the threat landscape constantly shifting, it is absolutely imperative to continuously pressure test your security measures. That's where the internal audit comes in. It's an independent evaluation that looks at whether your ISMS is actually managing risks and hitting those prescribed ISO controls. Basically, it's about replacing assumptions with verified hard facts. So here is our roadmap for the audit lifecycle. We'll hit 1. Scope and objectives. 2. The independent audit team. 3. Data collection. 4. Analyzing findings. And finally, 5. The final audit report. Now, thinking about this as a timeline is super helpful. Managing these audits as a chronological journey, rather than just, isolated tasks, ensures the results actually help optimize your operations. It's a systematic mission to hunt down weaknesses and adapt to whatever new threats are out there. First step on the agenda, step 1, scope and objectives. Basically, planning the mission. Look, before we even start poking around, we absolutely have to draw our map. The scope sets your exact boundaries. Are you auditing the entire ISMS or zooming in on something specific, like incident response? It has to be comprehensive enough to actually matter. Meanwhile, the objectives are what you're actually trying to achieve. Are you verifying control implementation or testing the risk framework? Without a clear map, your audit is just going to drift right off course. With our map drawn, it's time for step 2, assembling your independent audit team. Now, this is huge. There is an absolute, non-negotiable necessity for independence here. ISO 42001 makes it very clear your audit team has to be completely independent of the processes they're looking at. Think about it. An auditor overseeing the ISMS in a specific department should never, ever audit that same department. You just can't grade your own homework. Even unintentional bias can creep in. Neutrality is what gives everyone true confidence that the findings are based purely on facts. All right, map is drawn, crew is ready. Step 3 is data collection. Let's execute the investigation. At this stage, our auditors need cold, hard evidence, not guesses, and they gather this in 4 main ways. First, interviews with key personnel to really gauge management practices. Second, document review, literally digging into the security policies and incident reports to see if they align with the standard. Third, observations. This is just watching day-to-day operations to see if things like access controls are actually happening in reality, not just existing on paper. And finally, sampling activity records, like access logs. It's a multi-angle approach to finding the truth. Okay, so we've gathered a mountain of evidence. Step 4 is analyzing findings. Time to classify what we found. When auditors find a gap where we aren't meeting the ISO requirements, it's called a non-conformity, and we have to categorize it. A major non-conformity is a massive systemic failure, like, say, failing to do a risk assessment on critical systems for 18 months. That requires immediate action. On the flip side, a minor non-conformity, actually, scraps that. It's still serious, but it's more of an isolated issue, like an access control policy that totally exists but just missed its scheduled 6-month update. But hey, audits aren't just pass or fail. There is this fantastic gray area known as an opportunity for improvement, or an OFI. This means you are compliant, but the auditor spotted a clever way to make the system even tighter for the future. Continuous improvement is really the heartbeat of ISO 42001, and OFIs are exactly how you level up before a small inefficiency turns into a real nonconformity. Finally, we reach the resolution of our narrative. Step 5, the final audit report, documenting the record. To make sure you walk away with highly actionable knowledge, the report follows a very logical blueprint. It starts with the reference, which links the findings straight back to a specific ISO clause. Then, a crystal clear description of the issue, followed by its severity. Crucially, it must include the root cause, and it wraps up with actionable, measurable recommendations. This way, the organization knows exactly what broke, why it broke, and exactly how to fix it. I really want to emphasize that root cause piece. Honestly, just finding a non-conformity is only half the battle.
If we don't identify the root cause, it's going to happen again. For instance, if a policy was ignored, we have to ask why. Was it zero employee awareness? Bad training? If the report just says, hey, follow the policy, you're just treating the symptoms. By nailing down the root cause, you cure the disease.
So, I'll leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on. How will you use your next internal audit to spark continuous improvement? Remember, an audit under Section 15.2 isn't some stressful administrative burden. It is quite literally a powerful engine for growth. Define your scope, get an independent team, gather solid evidence, and document those root causes. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and keep pushing for that continuous improvement.